Resident Evil 4 Remake is almost here, but there is one elephant in the room amongst hardcore fans of the original. Do we want another Stalker enemy in Resident Evil 4 Remake? Like it or not, it's a possibility that we're going to see another. So let's take a look at the upcoming Resident Evil 4 Remake and list 10 enemies that could become the next Stalker. 1. Dr. Salvador. He can be detected by the sound of a chainsaw revving nearby. Due to his size, sack mask and unique weapon, he is very easy to tell apart from regular villagers, and can absorb small arms fire with ease. Dr. Salvador really was the first WTF enemy you encounter in Resident Evil 4. It decapitates you in an awesome death animation. So arguably he would be a perfect Stalker enemy for the village section of the Resident Evil 4 remake. Number 2. El Gigante. El Gigante translates to the Giant in Spanish, and is the name of the group of human-based bioorganic weapons produced by Los Illuminados. They stand 4 times taller than the average human and have increased strength and durability. However, their intelligence and thus their controllability was greatly reduced. So they're really scary when you first see them, because they absolutely burst out of a cage. They're kept in this cage behind this wall, behind this giant gate. The gate opens and El Gigante bursts out, killing a few villagers, stomping on them, throwing others. This could mean they're too big to be a Stalker. This is something to consider, is the Stalkers in the previous games like Lady Dimitrescu and stuff, they're big, but they're not El Gigante big. You know, like El Gigante is basically as tall as a few buildings stacked on top of each other. That might make El Gigante impossible to be the next Stalker enemy. However, they could make an El Gigante version that's smaller in Resident Evil 4 Remake, something that's a bit more like Nemesis, because Nemesis was this tall monster-like thing that didn't really have a brain, you know, it was just mindless parasite, must kill good guys, and that's it. That's basically the El Gigante. Number 3. Vitores Mendez. Father Vitores Mendez was a Catholic priest whose parish constituted an isolated rural community in Spain in the Resident Evil 4 storyline. Some of Mendez's distinguishing characteristics included his imposing stature and trench coat, his artificial eye, an extraordinary resistance to firearms, and superhuman strength. See, again, maybe we're going to see Stalkers based on different stages of the game, and if so, the village would probably have Mendez as the main Stalker. We do see him once or twice in the original, however he doesn't actually become a playable villain until his actual boss fight. You never get to fight him until his proper boss fight at the end of the village. Unlike the other two, Mendez has a mutated form, so in the boss fight he changes from his human-looking form to this weird scorpion, insect with a big tall spine. He can swing around and be really quick. Something key here is that in the Resident Evil 4 Remake trailer, we see Ashley looking up. She's not looking horizontal, she's looking up. So that says to me that she is being chased by something tall. That would fit Mendez. So maybe we are going to see Mendez as the Stalker in the village section. Number 4. Garrador. Garrador roughly translates as the Clawrer, and they are an augmented human host of the Plagas. Their eyelids were stitched together and they were bound in prison cells. The loss of eyesight led to increased hearing, making them dangerous even when blind. We see them in Resident Evil 4 Original just wildly swinging their giant claws whenever they hear any kind of sound, and that's what makes them so scary. The blind and sound mechanic could work really well as a Stalker. Think back to Resi 7, Resi 2 Remake, Resi 3 Remake, Resi Village. All of these Stalkers haven't really had any kind of interesting mechanic. They've all just been like chasing you, really. They walk and walk and walk and chase you until you run away or you stop them temporarily. However, here, the Garrador has a blind and sound mechanic, an actual gameplay element, in that they can't see where you are, they can only hear you. That could be a fascinating element of being a Stalker enemy. Number 5. Armadura. Armadura translates from Spanish meaning suit of armor or just armor, and they're a Plaga-possessed suit of armor inhabiting the darkest corridors of the castle within Spain. The Plaga stretches out inside the armor and manipulates it with its tentacles, allowing it to move in human-like ways, swinging swords and halberds to subdue its prey. The first time they appear is when you're playing as Ashley and you're completely defenseless because Ashley has no attack. She can just run and run and run and hide. So what it means is that when you see them, you simply are just so scared because you have no idea how to react. The thing about these guys is they have no face. That can make them a lot more scary, but kind of more boring. It's a tough balance to do when the enemy has no face. We saw a similar thing with Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake as the Stalker, because Mr. X had a face, but he barely had any emotion at all. So it was almost like he was wearing a suit of armor. Number 6. Verdugo. This is Spanish for executioner, and they are BOWs created by Los Illuminados to serve as personal bodyguards for Ramon Salazar. The two Verdugos were created by a fusion of human and insect DNA. They concealed their mutated forms beneath these big red and black robes. Now, the fact that there are two Verdugos means that they can play a part as a kind of twin mechanic. It can be both of them at the same time. We've seen in the other Resi games that there is one Stalker at a time. Mr. X, Nemesis, Jack Baker, Lady Dimitrescu. It's only one at a time. Here, there are two of them. Imagine two of these giant insect monsters both being Stalkers at the same time. Number 7. Ramon Salazar. Ramon Salazar is a nobleman from the unnamed region in Spain where the castle is based. Although his diminutive stature resembled that of a 10-year-old, and his grey hair and wrinkled face gave him the appearance of an old man, he was only 20 years old, as he says to Leon. So obviously how tiny Salazar is could play a massive advantage in him being a Stalker enemy. We haven't seen that before. All of the Stalker enemies we've seen have been either human adult size or huge. He also has the Verdugo bodyguards, so again, it's a new element. It could be him being a Stalker with two other little Stalkers that follow him around. His mutation, on the other hand, is huge, so maybe he could begin to mutate whenever he sees Leon, and there's a kind of like time limit factor before he becomes too big, or maybe that's a bit too stupid, I don't know, but basically there's another option there for him being a Stalker with a new mechanic. Salazar being a Stalker kind of reminds me of Lady Dimitrescu in Resi Village, because she eventually mutated into something huge as well. Number 8. Regenerators. Regenerators are widely considered the scariest enemy in Resident Evil 4 Original. Regenerators were known for their enhanced regenerative abilities, allowing them to regrow large portions of their body if destroyed. So if you shoot their leg off or their head off or something, they'll just grow a new one. So the fear itself would be a good element of this Stalker enemy, because remember the breathing sound effect, like my god, that breathing sound. That is one of the scariest moments in Resident Evil 4, especially because you see the first one, hear the sound, you kill the first one, and there's still the sound playing, because there's one right round the corner. So that whole sound mechanic could be a huge element of a Stalker enemy in Resident Evil 4 Remake. We hadn't really seen that in the previous Stalkers. So Jack Baker, yeah, you hear his footsteps, and similarly footsteps of Lady Dimitrescu and stuff, but really a breathing sound, that could be a massive scary element of, a Regenerator being a Stalker in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Number 9. Jack Krauser. Previously a soldier within the part of the army known as Silverdax, along with Leon, he was forced into retirement after a 2002 mission to South America with Leon himself. During his employment within the organization, Krauser took part in the infiltration of Los Illuminados to obtain a Plaga parasite. Krauser's a bit of a weird one because him mutating means he still retains largely his human form. He just grows a massive arm with a big blade attached. He's also incredibly fast, so we see earlier in his fight with Leon that he doesn't possess that super speed. However, when he mutates, he suddenly has this huge sharp blade arm and he can zoom across the map. Consider that for a Stalker. We've seen Stalkers that are slow and they walk fast, but they just basically walk and don't run towards the player. Krauser could be the first Stalker to run. He could be the first Stalker to have some kind of super speed element. Also consider this, he was friends with Leon in the storyline. We haven't seen that in the Stalker enemies of the past. Jack Baker, Lady Dimitrescu, and Nemesis and Mr. X, they're just new characters. Here, Leon knows Krauser, so that could be an emotional connection to the Stalker. Can you imagine that? Like, what even would that look like? I don't know. Number 10. Osmond Saddler. We see that within Saddler himself, he has the parasite infection because he can control this long tentacle that shoots out of his wrist. However, eventually he can transform into another huge mutation. If he was the Stalker of the Resident Evil 4 remake, it would remove a bit of his storyline because basically he needs to transform into the giant mutated thing at the end. So until then, would he just be a stalker in his robe and fires out his, tentacle thing? That's similar to what Nemesis did. In Resident Evil 3 Remake, Nemesis had the same tentacle shooting power thing. It could be similar with Sadler. Consider that in the Resident Evil 4 Remake trailer, we hear his voice. We only hear about 3 voices in that entire trailer, and he is one of them. So that says to me that he is going to be a significant part of the story. That also says to me that his performance, as the actor, is going to be a significant part of the game as well, rather than simply fighting. The thing about, Jack Baker, Lady Dimitrescu, we heard their voices in the trailer, and that worked as them being the Stalker too, so we could see a similar thing with Sadler. Thank you for watching that, everybody. If you agreed or disagreed with anything I was saying about Resident Evil 4 Remake, then please let me know below. Tell me below, what do you think? Hate what I'm saying? Love what I'm saying? Whatever you do, subscribe, because Jam Punch is releasing a brand new episode of Resident Evil every single week. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I'll see you next time.